Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am, of course, Beaton, and across from me on here on YouTube, if you're watching, is the good-looking Master Lothario himself. Gray, how you doing?
How about some more compliments there, guy?
You know, the
Let's hear some more.
the best-dressed man in fantasy baseball.
What's up, B-Don?
Hey, not much, Gray. We are here. We both had our birthdays.
Hey, B-Don. Hey, B-Don. What's going on? Hey, it sounds like Nicki Minaj. From stripping to rapping to fantasy baseball analyst, Nicki Minaj. What's going on, B-Don?
Her podcast would absolutely kill us. Like it's a really
God.
good thing she doesn't do fantasy baseball.
I was thinking she would come on our podcast.
Maybe you can make that happen, Gray. I don't have those connections. I don't live in LA.
Oh man, that would be amazing. Imagine it was like, oh my god, in Tout Wars this year is Nicki Minaj. Nice.
we kicked out somebody that nobody's ever heard of, and we put in Nicki Minaj. I think it'll be a good swap.
Yeah, it's a solid swap out. That's like that would trigger the booby trap in like Indiana Jones when he takes like the relic and he puts on the sandbag. That's like something that doesn't trigger the booby trap. This would trigger it.
This is stepping into the trap.
Quicksand. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay.
All right,
this is a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. This is the First Baseman podcast for 2023. What I noticed as I was going through your rankings, Gray, is that the dead ball in 2022 absolutely killed the first base position. It used to be solid even last year or 2 years ago in 21. It wasn't too bad. The dead ball seems to have absolutely killed it. It's not pretty, Gray. First base used to be like fantasy goodness, and now it's just it's awful.
Yeah, here's a guy we'll go over at some point, but you look at someone like Jose Abreu, who I do like this year, and who we'll go over in more depth in a couple minutes. But yeah, I mean, he went from a 30 homer guy to a 15 homer guy in like that. It's like, what happened, man? Like nothing else changed. Like his fly ball rate is basically the same, and it's like, but now he doesn't hit home runs. He hits line drives. Yeah, it was a tough year. And first base doesn't look great. Like in general, I was a little shocked at how bad it looked. To be honest, I was like going through first base, and I was, because it's usually a pretty deep position, and you get like, 6 in, and you're like, wait, what? Why is there no first baseman? Yeah. So
am I reading this correctly? Like, wait, no, he can't be top 10. Oh shit, he's top 10.
Yeah, no,
he might be like 7.
It's like, there's like, the big three of Vlad Jr., Freddie Freeman, and Pete Alonso, and then Paul Goldschmidt, who's number 4, who just won the MVP, isn't bad. And then there's question marks almost immediately. Almost immediately you have like question marks. So yeah, anyway, so we should.
All right, so let's jump into Paul Goldschmidt. He is number 4. He's the first one that we're going to talk about. 1 through 3 was Vlad, Freddie Freeman, and Pete Alonso. We've talked about them in the top 20, so you can go listen to that one if you want to hear about them. So Paul Goldschmidt in 2022 had a 35 home run, 7 stolen base, 106, 115, 317, 404, 578 campaign. It was one of his best seasons that he's put up for, ever, and he did it, into his 30s. You have him down for 29-7, 94, 105, 291. Rudy's pretty much right in line with you in regards to everything other than maybe the batting average, which he has him down for 274. It's really just a question of whether you think he keeps it up at age 35, right? Everything else kind of looks like it's in line.
Yeah, no, completely. With Goldschmidt, I think he actually, like, this isn't necessarily fantasy related, but I think he might have just punched his ticket for the Hall of Fame eventually with his MVP year. Just looking at his player page right now and his career stats, it's going to be close. I don't know. At a certain point, I think the Hall of Fame's going to have to, forget about those career numbers to a certain extent and start letting in more people, because I mean, like Paul Goldschmidt definitely is not Lou Gehrig when it comes to career stats, but he is like, I mean, his numbers do look really good. Yeah, for fantasy this year, I think going in, you just have to kind of like, put aside the fact that he's 35 years old and just assume he's going to keep producing, because he's done really nothing but produce. If you throw out the wonky 2020 year, he's got, he's basically been a lock for 30-ish homers, 7 to 12 steals, 300-ish average. Like, he's a career 295 hitter. Yeah, I mean, he just looks like your basic number 3 guy in the order who's going to produce and is a pretty lock solid bet for solid production. I think with Goldschmidt, the only thing that is maybe a little bit worrisome is just the age. But other than that, like, his numbers look fairly normal, like across the board. Like, his fly ball rate was totally fine. His homers per fly ball is more or less within his career range. Everything really across the board is within his career range. Like, he just continues to be solid. I don't think, I wouldn't bet on more, but I mean, if you're betting on less, you're just betting on less because of the age. And, that's a total, like, just a shot in the dark that he's suddenly going to get old. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with him. I didn't really love him going into last year. Because I thought, like, I kind of felt like he was a little bit overrated, but, on me, not smart, not right. So yeah, I like him, to a certain extent. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be drafting him because he is going pretty high, and I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price necessarily for him, but if he's there at a decent, I don't know, where's he going overall? I'm guessing like 30-ish overall.
He's going 28 right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you gotta, like, and that's the kind of thing, like, not to give myself, not to totally hedge what I say and to give myself a buy on everything I say. But if you're going to get Goldschmidt, you really have to have the right draft pick. Like, you can't have, like, like, if you're in a position where you're taking, Vlad, Freeman, or Alonso, then Goldschmidt's off the board. And if you're in a position where, like, if, like, say, I don't know, Tatis falls to you in the second round, if someone falls to you in the second round, then, you're going to want to take that person over taking Goldschmidt. Like, like, when you're that high up in the draft, you really have to have a certain pick in order to get a certain guy. But with all that said, I don't know. I probably would draft him if he fell to like 35. In the high 20s feels a little bit high, but yeah, I also can't argue with it. I mean, if you need that production, I can see it. It's like, I don't see anything really that awful about him, like, in any of his peripherals.
Yeah, I mean, if he makes it to 28 in my draft room, I'm probably gonna have a hard time passing him up, because if we're talking about that ADP, there's probably about 3 to 5 guys in that ADP that I'm not drafting. So we're talking about the pitchers, basically, the closers, the catchers, Freddie Freeman, I'm not drafting. Like, those, there's probably 5, 6 guys that fit in those categories that I'm not drafting. So if Paul Goldschmidt slips to 25, 28, 30, then yeah, he's probably going to be in my selection of picks. But you're right. Like, up until that point, I'm not necessarily thinking about him. Like, I'm probably taking all the first basemen that we talked about, other than Freeman. When I'm taking Devers, Riley, Machado. I'm taking Michael Harris. So there's guys that are certainly above him. So it does fall into an ADP discussion at some point. But I do like him more than Freeman. So that's one adjustment that I would make.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, completely. I mean, like, specifically, I have guys like, I think I have like Marcus Semien a little bit above him. So, and he's going, I think, later. So probably if I were looking at it, I'd probably be like, Semien, because I like the power. Like Semien versus Goldschmidt is basically a batting average bet, and more steals for Semien. So, in theory at least, and the same amount of power. But yeah, I don't know. Not really. I mean, it's sort of splitting hairs. I don't mind Goldschmidt if people want to grab him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're kind of in the same place there. To my point about Freeman, I don't really understand why Goldie's going after Freeman. Like, you're getting high average from both. You're getting probably, I mean, if we're trusting somebody's speed, I trust Goldie to steal 5 to 10 bases more than I trust Freeman. Freeman just put up, a 35 home run season. We saw Freddie hit a 21 home run season. They both hit for high average. So this is one where I feel like the masses have decided Freddie Freeman goes in the top 15, Goldschmidt goes in the top 30, whereas I feel like those two should be reversed. So I do think there's some potential buying opportunity here on Goldschmidt, but let's go ahead and move on.
It's fair. It's fair. No, 1 second before we move on. I mean, that is a fair argument, because it is like, what are you getting from Freeman that you're not getting from Goldschmidt? I guess it's a little bit more average. And the assumption is that Freeman and Goldie are going to be within like a handful of home runs, I guess. Like, people are assuming Freeman's power is going to come back to like 25 and Goldschmidt's like 28. So, 3 homers is, that's really a push basically. But I mean, I hear you though. Like, there is a case to be made that like Freeman's average and Goldschmidt's average are probably going to be, basically the same. And Goldschmidt's speed, I mean, he's shown speed more than Freeman for many more years. Like, he has a lot more of a track record when it comes to, track record, like track and field. Get it? No? All right. Continuing on. Like Freeman and Goldschmidt is probably a good, like, who's better. And it's hard, a lot of people would say Freeman, but it is hard to say that specifically. And I have Freeman above Goldschmidt, but I don't love Freeman. I think Freeman has issues. Like, I do. And it's like Freeman is kind of in that place where Goldschmidt was a couple years ago, and Freeman could come out of it and hit a lot and hit for more power this year. But if he also comes back and hits like 17 to 20 homers this year, people are gonna be like, "Oh, what did I do? why did I draft a 20 homer, 10 steal, 300 hitter with my second pick?" It's not.
Yeah, I mean, first pick in some cases.
Yeah, first pick in deeper leagues for sure.
Yeah. So my whole goal is to eventually get you to move Freddie Freeman out of your top 40, like I have. So that's what I'm working towards. Moving on to Freddie Freeman's replacement in Atlanta at number 5, which is Matt Olson. In 22, he had 34 home runs. He went 86, 103, 240, 325. You have him down for 37 home runs, a stolen base, 92, 111, 246. We all, and I say we collectively at Razzball, all kind of got on board the Matt Olson train, partially because Rudy was like, no, he's moving to Atlanta. It's going to be massive. If you look at the numbers, like 34, 240 is not that bad. But he's going to be 30 home runs. I have no question about that. But I have no clue, Gray, what the hell his batting average ever is going to look like. Underlying numbers look pretty much the same as they always have. The first pitch swing rate was up and he struggled with breaking balls, but like that changes for him every year. I don't know what his average looks like. I just know he's going to hit me 30 home runs.
Yeah. I mean, I think with Matt Olson, the thing is that he's like a guy who's like has so much, he has so much power, hits the ball so hard. And, assuming the lack of the shift helps even just a little bit, even if it's just 5 points on average, Like he feels like like neutrally, because of how hard he hits the ball, I would think he's a 240 hitter, just like completely neutral. What he was last year was he hit 240 with 24% Ks and 274 BABIP. So if his BABIP comes up just a little bit because he does hit the ball so hard, and his Ks stay even at 24%, that's not. I mean, 24% isn't really that crazy of a strikeout rate for a guy like with his power. I mean, 245 doesn't feel like insane for like his average. Like you said, I project him for 246. Rowdy has him for 249. I don't know. I mean, that feels like I mean, I hear what you're saying that like, from year to year, his average kind of fluctuates all over the board. But, if you're throwing out 2020 when he hit 195, he's been basically a 250 hitter for his career. Even with the 195 average, he hits 250 for his career officially. But I mean, even with that thrown out, like I'm saying neutrally, he's 240, throw out the shift and he's 245. Yeah, I mean 245 to 252 ish for average. I don't think that's too wild of a for him. I don't really worry about his average that much. I do feel like he could potentially like have this huge season. Like I like Matt Olson still. I'm still a big fan. I'd probably have him. I don't know if I have him ranked above ADP. I might. Let's see. Matt Olson's he's at 45 overall. As of right this second, I have him at 40 overall. Subject to change, obviously. But yeah, I have pretty good confidence in Matt Olson to be like a 35 homer, 245 hitter with Buku. If they still say it, Buku runs and RBIs. Do they say it? I don't know. I'm not sure what the kids say anymore. But yeah, I think Matt Olson's like really kind of underrated a little bit. I think he could have, like I mentioned in my my top 20 first baseman. I mean, I mentioned that I think he could have like a huge MVP type year. Like if I were to put like, and I'm not saying he's a favorite to win the MVP. But if you're looking for a dark horse MVP bet, Matt Olson like could have one of those years where he hits 45 homers, gets 130 RBIs, 100 plus runs, and hits 260. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, he's really like he has immense power. So I'm a big fan. Obviously, I have him ranked pretty high. I will be drafting Matt Olson again.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with drafting Matt Olson where he's going either. The average is just a little frustrating. Like I said, if you look at the last 4 years and you mentioned the 2020 was being weird, but like 267, 195, 271, 240. Like there's a gigantic swing. Even if you remove the 195, we're still talking like a 30 plus point swing in batting average. And I think that's I think he can do it. I think he can fall anywhere between like 240 and 270. I just don't know which one it is. So it just becomes a little bit difficult as you're putting your team together. And I probably build in a little bit more average later than maybe I would have last year drafting Matt Olson.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, moving on to number 6, which is the next tier, the third tier, happily in the puzzle aisle of a toy store. Nathaniel Lowe. Last year he went 27-2, 74, 76, 302, 358, 492. You have him down for 26 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 86, 94, 277. Rowdy has him down for pretty much the same numbers. I mean, he got more aggressive last year and it worked out for him. Nate Lowe's kind of one of those guys you either believe in or not this year, I feel like.
Yeah, and I do have more trepidation with him ever since I heard that the Rangers were using a bouncy ball at home. That it's not that his home and away splits were. I don't think they were insane, but I do think it's it's a confidence booster when the ball's bouncing off your bat a little bit better when you're at home. He hit better in away games for power at least. Yeah, I mean, I think, I went into, I go into each player really trying my best to just look at what they should do without taking too much into consideration what they just did. And putting aside recency bias. But yeah, he got more aggressive and it worked for him. Like, it worked really well. I mean, his contact in the zone went up, his contact outside the zone. It's all like his O swing and his it went from 22.8 to 30.5. Like, that to me says aggressive. And it also, I mean, on the downside, if you want to be negative, the thing is, like, if you get really aggressive with balls outside the zone, you start making weak contact because you're hitting pitchers' pitches, and it's not great. But it worked for him. And at 26 years old, it feels like he's come into his own. I was kind of surprised that I was the only one really, or maybe I'm not, but I feel like I'm trusting him more than most because his ADP, like, he's going way after, like, Vinnie Pasquantino and Jose Abreu. Nate Lowe's going after those guys, which is like, and I don't necessarily dislike those guys. I'm just saying, like, if you're going off of last year and his peripherals alone, not just like, yeah, I mean, his numbers look good. I mean, they look like numbers of a guy who just broke out to a certain extent. Again, it's a little bit worrisome about the bouncy ball thing, but he wasn't terrible on the road. So, try to overlook it a little bit. Yeah, I like Nate Lowe. I was surprised at how much I liked Nate Lowe. I think we should also briefly discuss that, like, between Olson and Goldschmidt, there is like the biggest drop off I've seen in a long time for first baseman, or any tier really. Like, if for a top 100 tier, that is I think there's a good 40 spots between like Olson and Lowe, at least in my ranking. So you're looking at like 40 overall and 80 overall, which 40 spots doesn't sound like a lot, except in the top 100, that's a huge gap. Like, that is a really big drop off. Like, we've gone from like first baseman to like, I kind of want it as my corner man in a shallower league, or like, obvious, or an obvious drop off for a first baseman. Like, if you're drafting Goldschmidt or Olson, and your league mate drafts Nate Lowe, and you're looking at the two teams, you're going to be like, the guy with Goldschmidt's got a better team. It's just better. Sorry, I don't know what happened to your team. I don't know what you did with first base, but you kind of punted. It's like, what? I didn't punt. I drafted a guy at 80 overall. Like, yeah, I don't know. And Nate Lowe's okay, but is Nate Lowe Paul Goldschmidt? Nah, I don't think so. I'm coming back with a no. He's not. So, yeah, I like Nate Lowe a decent amount, or Nathaniel Lowe, excuse me. He's like, suddenly my man walked into Louis Vuitton and decided to start going by Nathaniel. Okay, anyway, I like him, but it's obvious he's not in the tier above. I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And to your point about the ADPs, I mean, the players going around Matt Olson are like Randy Arozarena, Jazz Chisholm, Cedric Mullins. So, like, guys that are, borderline first rounders still going in that area. Whereas the guys going around Nate Lowe are like Byron Buxton, Tyler O'Neill, Seiya Suzuki. So, like, guys you're hoping bounce back. Like, that's the difference in ADP cost between Olson and Lowe. And you're right. That's like the craziest split I've ever seen at first base specifically. And really, like, among most positions. Catchers always kind of top heavy, but like most positions work themselves out a little bit better, more slowly than that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, more of more of a gradual decrease versus this giant jump down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moving on to number 7, Jose Abreu. He's off to Houston, and also the poster boy for the first base dead ball death by lack of home runs. Last year he had 15 home runs. He had 85, 75, 304, 378, 446. You have him down for 26 home runs this year, 83, 109, 273. So you clearly like the move back to Houston here, or
I
move to
do,
Houston.
yeah. No, I am. I'm a fan. I like Jose Abreu. I think he's probably, honestly, it's going to come down to like this is going to be a make or break year for sure. Well, definitely for Fernando Tatis Jr. I don't know why I thought of that, but I just keep thinking of Tatis. Like I wake up in the middle of the night in sweats. Like holy crap! If Tatis is not good this year, like it's the end of his career. But anyway, Jose Abreu, like if he has another 15 homer year, then egg on my face, and Jose Abreu is now a 15 homer guy. Like that is probably, I mean, that's a legitimate concern for sure. But I don't know, the Crawford boxes, him just going to like a really stacked lineup. I like Jose Abreu. I like the bounce back. I think he's still like, if you look at his numbers, like his hard hit percentage year over year from 21 to 22 wasn't a huge difference. Like his fly balls were down a little bit, but not too bad. It was really his homer per fly ball that really took the biggest dump. And that happened with everyone in Chicago. Like I almost feel like they set their humidor on 11, and it was like, whoa, we're too high. I think. Wait, what's going on here? Why is the humidor deflating the balls? Why do the balls look like raisins? Yeah, I don't know. I like Jose Abreu though. I think he's, he is what he is. Honestly, I wouldn't expect he's not going to suddenly steal 7 bags. He's totally exactly what you expect, plus or minus on the power. But I think it's going to be plus on the power with the Crawford boxes.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to get some of that power back. And I feel like both sides of Chicago somehow had the wind blowing in all season because neither team in Chicago hit home runs. Now that maybe that's just because the Cubs lineup is pathetic, but it just wasn't a great season. But yes, I'm with you on a Jose Abreu bounce back. And honestly, at the first base position, if you just get what he did last year, which is a great average, counting numbers, and the 15 home runs would be disappointing. But that's still pretty much what you're getting from first base here on out, and we'll kind of get into that. But moving on to number 8 is Christian Walker. Last year he went 36 to 84, 94, 242. You have him down for 33 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 79, 87, and 240. Rudy has him pretty much in that same area, but he has him slightly down on the rank as he has him down at 16th among first basemen. So it's not really that the numbers disagree that much. You have a few more homers, but just I feel like Rudy has some other guys projected a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I think, I am probably giving him a little bit more credit on average, I would guess, if I had to guess why my ranking has him a little bit higher than Rudy's ranking. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, I think with Christian Walker, last year, like he's really, I mean, he's old. He's going to be 32 in March. I think he's probably, if anything, he might only have like another year or two, because he just broke out so late. But the power looks real. I mean, everything looks like legitimate. I like I said, I go into this looking to see if anything looks like odd in the numbers, and the numbers looked pretty much as they should. I mean, it looks like his fly balls and his homer per fly ball, they look relatively within like career norms. It was just, it was a really excellent year for him last year, and I don't really see a reason why his power should like suddenly drop off. So, with that in mind, yeah, that's where he ended up ranking for me. I honestly was kind of surprised he ranked as high as he did, but I don't know. I mean, if you look at his numbers, like, say 32 homers, 2 steals, and 240, I have him for that versus like Nate Lowe, who I have for 26 homers and 275 ish, and maybe 5 steals. I don't know. It's essentially. I mean, okay, 30 more points on average, I guess, is I do have Nate Lowe above him, so obviously I had I had that. But yeah, I don't know. The average is more or less doesn't 240 average. It's not like he's giving you a 190 average. I mean, the major league average across the league is like 243 or something. I mean, it's just no one hits for a good average. So I don't know. I mean, Christian Walker again. I mean, is not like the most exciting, but I probably am the lowest on the next guy. So I guess we should move on to him.
Yeah, and I will say for you and Rudy's discrepancy there, it seems like it's the home runs. You have him down for 33. Rudy has him down for 25. So that seems to be the biggest difference between the two projections. And I will say, like, he's been very erratic in his power. Like, he had the 29 homer season in 2019. The shortened 20 season, he had 7, which would have prorated out to like low 20s. And then last year in 115 games, 2021, he had 10. And then he had 36 in 22. So, like, it's just been a little bit erratic in regards to the power. So I can see where Rudy's coming from. He just doesn't give him that 30 plus guaranteed. I'd probably have him over 25. So I'm probably right in the middle of you two.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So moving on to Vinnie P. Last year, he comes up 72 games. He had 10 home runs. He had a stolen base, 25-26. He hits 295, 383, 450. In AAA, in 73 games, he had 18 home runs, 3 stolen bases, and hit 277. You've got him down for 27 home runs, a stolen base, 71, 82, and 279. And as you mentioned, he does have a little bit of helium. Just, anytime there's a prospect that comes up and hits well, they just get that draft helium the next year a little bit. I don't feel like it's out of control on Vinny, but as you mentioned, you may be among the lower people on him in the general industry.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised. I didn't think I was going to be that low on him when I was like doing my rankings, but yeah, people are really high on him. Really, really high. Like, even if you take me out of the picture and you look at like projections of like 25 homers, 2 steals, 278 average. I mean, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's fine. But people have him like he's a what is he? The 6th best first baseman according to ADP. So he's right after Matt Olson. Like, I don't know. Is 25 homers, 2 steals, 278 average in a Royals lineup? I mean, I don't think the Royals are terrible, but they're not. They're nowhere near the Astros. Like, if you were to just take no one else, but you just take Jose Abreu and Pasquantino, Vinnie Pasquetti. If you were to take Pasquetti and Abreu and put their numbers back to back, Abreu's going to beat him in average. They're basically the same for speed. Vinny doesn't have any real speed. And then, so you look at runs and RBIs. Is there any way? So Abreu beats him in average. Is there any way Abreu's not going to beat him in runs and RBIs? I mean, it doesn't seem like possible. It really seems impossible for Vinny to beat Abreu in runs and RBIs. So right there, you have 3 categories alone where Abreu's better, and steals where they're the same. So your final category is homers. So people are saying Vinny has so much more power than Jose Abreu that he's so much more valuable than Jose Abreu to be drafted higher than him. And Vinny has 10 homers in his career. his major league career. I mean, I know he's got more power than that, and that was only in 72 games, but still, I mean, it wasn't like in a half season we saw like 20 homers and he looks like he's headed for a 40 homer season. I mean, that is not the case here. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting to be the low man on the Vinnie Pasquantino totem pole, but apparently I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of with you, and that's that. I really wanted to be high on Vinny P because he is a great hitter. I love him as a baseball player because he plays great defense. He doesn't strike out. He takes his walks. Like, he's a great baseball player in real life. For our game, I don't know if it all translates. Like, I don't even know if I believe that he hits your marks that you've given him, which respectfully seem low compared to the general consensus. Like we said, I just don't know if it happens. I kind of get like if you take what Alex Bregman has done like the last 2 seasons and give him a little bit more on average. Like, I feel like that's what Vinny is. Like, he's
put him
Bregman,
and put him in the worst lineup.
Yeah, and stick him in a terrible lineup. Like, that's what you're getting with Vinny. I just don't know that it's gonna quite provide the breakout people are looking for. Now, if he hits 30 home runs and it's 300 this year, then I'll eat my words and I'll be completely wrong. I just don't see the 330 season happening quite yet. Maybe the power comes eventually, but I just didn't see enough last year to think it's coming.
It's also like, if you're looking, like, I know there's no speed really at first base, or not usually, at least. There's a couple guys, but for the most part, there's no speed. But if you're looking for guys that are going to be like, they're going to outperform their ADP, you want to at least see guys who could excel in 5 categories. Like we said, with the Royals lineup not being great, like, where is Vinny excelling to the point where, like, his best case scenario, and I don't think this is a real scenario for him, but his best case is like a Pete Alonso, like a breakout 40 plus homers and a 285 average or something. Like, that's like his best case scenario. I don't think that's really, and anyone's, like, that's like a 1% chance of that happening. Like, I don't think that's really going to happen. So, like, what is people's, like, where I feel like Bregman's not a bad comparison, because, like, that's probably like the best case scenario for Vinny. And then that case scenario is like kind of like, it's okay.
I mean, and I'm not talking about the like 31-10 Bregman. I'm talking about like last year, like 23-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's good and it's fine. And it's like, and like you're saying too, like, and I don't dislike him. I think he's great. I just don't see the fantasy upside.
Yeah, I don't get the fantasy ADP.
Yeah,
and like where
like,
he's
honestly, like the next guy in my rankings, I think has more upside, but
yeah, and that's number 10 is Rhys Hoskins. We'll just go ahead and bring him up into this discussion. Last year, he hit 30 home runs. He hit 246, 81, 79. You have him down for 30 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 84, 77, and 245. I mean, he's almost a locked hit, at least, I'd say mid-20s home runs, even high 20s home runs, and probably in that 240, mid-240s area. But you're right. As far as upside goes, like, he hits the ball really hard. If he just makes an adjustment and puts the ball like in play a little bit more, that could happen.
Yeah, no, completely. I think Rhys Hoskins is like a great value bet. Like, if you're looking at a guy who, what's his ADP? 121. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a boring name for like a sleeper post. So I didn't write that because, got to keep him exciting. But yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy who could really like break out. I mean, he's not, I don't think, again, it's like, he's not going to give you much speed. And he's probably his average. Like, if you're looking at most likely scenarios, he's going to hit 32 homers and 245. Like, that's, most likely 29 to 32 homers 3 steals, 245 average, and decent runs and RBIs. Not terrible. Probably as good as Vinnie, if not better. And the average will be lower than Vinnie is, everyone's assumption, including my own. But if he gets lucky on Babbitt and his, if his average comes up just a little bit, if he hits like a hair over what he usually hits, like he's a pretty solid bet for 245. Like that's basically what he hits every year. But if he gets lucky and has a 260 average year and gets into a couple extra homers, hits 35 homers, it's not hard to imagine him being a really solid, productive bat at, first base for like a fantasy team. Hit the difference between him and, Matt Olson may not be as dramatic of a difference as ADP seems to think. And I also think so. Don't, I'm not pushing this all off on other people. I also think Matt Olson is much better, but there's a chance that Rhys Hoskins and Matt Olson could be closer in reality than they appear in the rear view mirror. What am I saying? I don't know. you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right, because we're essentially talking about a 30 home run, no speed, 245 hitter, and that's essentially what Matt Olson was last year. Olson obviously has a little bit more power, I feel like, or at least has shown a little bit more power, and he has definitely shown a little bit more average, but like their lines at the end of last year, pretty close. So I agree. I think that there's maybe some additional value here to be had compared to taking Olson as a top, 40 player.
Yeah.
And I do.
And also, like if you're looking at at the end of the day on the player rater last year, Matt Olson was at 6 and Rhys Hoskins was at 10, but only $4 separated them. And between Matt Olson, like Rhys Hoskins was the sort of the next tier down from the first baseman at 10 overall for first baseman. Matt Olson was at 6 overall for first baseman, but that's pretty close. $4 isn't like that dramatically different. Like there's, it's like the difference between like I don't know, say Christian Yelich and Tommy Pham, Ryan Mountcastle. Like I looked at $15 to $11 difference on the player rater. Anyway, Hoskins and Olson are probably in the same breath when it comes to production, but on ADP you got to pay like $70, not 70 spots in ADP better for Matt Olson. So you have to, you have to draft him like 6 rounds earlier than Rhys Hoskins. So yeah, there's value to be had with Rhys Hoskins. He could be a sleeper if he wasn't like, kind of boring to talk about, even though we managed to talk about it for 45 minutes. So there you go.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the 75, 80 picks in ADP seems ridiculous to me between the two of them, considering again, $4 is not worth 80 picks. Moving on to the next guy, the next tier. I'm not even gonna try and throw the name out for your tier, but CJ Cron, Claude Jean Cron, the king of splits. He had 29 home runs last year, 79, 102, 257. You have him down for 28 home runs, 71, 86, 251. Gray, I had to read these splits. Home, he hit 302, 22 home runs. Away, he hit 214, 7 home runs. In the first half, he hit 298, 21 home runs. In the second half, he hit 197 with 8 home runs. I don't know if there's a person who scares me more in this top like 12 first baseman than CJ Cron. I'm kind of terrified.
Yeah, no, I agree. Curtis Jackson Cron, as our new Tout Wars member Nicki Minaj would say. Yeah, I think I think he's probably like Cron is likely not good, except for Coors. He's likely just like kind of terrible if it wasn't for Coors. Like he's kind of the opposite of the next guy, Ryan Mountcastle, who unfortunately the Orioles have ruined that stadium. Like you put Mountcastle in Coors, Mamma mia! Yeah, I think which is something Vinnie Pasquantino says. Yeah, no, I think CJ Cron is like. I mean, he's a lock for 27-ish homers, 20, anywhere from like 25 to 29 homers. Like he's a lock for certain numbers. It's just how he gets there is kind of like a little bit of an, you're holding your nose with like, when you're in a weekly league and he's got 3 games at home and you're like, well, here we go. Hopefully he does enough at home because he's going to be awful when he goes away for the final 4-game road stand. Road stand? I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Anyway, CJ Cron is what he is. It's just the way he gets there is a little bit of a nose hold.
Yeah, it's terrifying to me. The splits just, I don't know if I can deal with another season of it. I had him last year. He was great to have in the first half. You knew when to start him for the most part, but man, the second half line may be more concerning to me than the home away. At least home away you can plan for. Like I don't know what happened in the second half that he just fell apart. Like he just fell apart, Gray. It was bad.
No, completely. And that's always like the second half. I think the first half and second half splits, not just with CJ Cron, but in general, like second half splits are always like there's so much weight that I feel like they carry more weight sometimes because it's like, well, that is like if a guy's not good in the second half, or if he's really good in the second half, like that is who he's going to become. Like that's always the worry. It's like, oh, CJ Cron was so terrible in the second half. What if he's terrible in the first half this year? And then he gets even worse in the second half this year. What if it's just like, this isn't like a splits issue. This is like him getting bad issue. Like that's a concern, man. And, CJ Cron's the guy who this is, in this tier in general, like we were saying, like how the first baseman's the first baseman is shallower than you expect. Like this tier is not great. This is really like this is not like I don't like some of the guys in this tier. I don't like hate necessarily, but I'm not looking to draft like CJ Cron. If I can avoid CJ Cron, I'm avoiding him because of all the things we're saying. Like the splits are really a worry.
Yeah, I mean, from the rest of the way on, like from here on out, it's like I don't really want to draft him, but I have to play somebody at corner infield or even first base if you just missed out on the guys because honestly, I think first base is probably a position that gets that positional bump once people start drafting, like we've seen with third base already kind of happen. Like third base is getting bumped up, like there's 3 of them, and then there's like nobody else playing the position. First base, I think, is worse, honestly, than third base. So I'm surprised that it hasn't happened, and I think it may come around. Moving on to Ryan Mountcastle, you talked about him. Last year, he had 22 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 62-85. He hit 250. You have him down for 24 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 74-88, 253. I mean, he had his career best hard hit rate, barrel rate, average exit velocity, and lost 10 to 12 home runs.
Yeah, well, that's Baltimore, man. Baltimore moved. They were like, let's move our left field fence out to Virginia and see what happens. Okay, I guess you found out what happens. Bring up Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah, can we get some pitchers now?
Yeah, like okay. Don't go out and get Cole Irvin. Come on, man. Stop playing games with us. I love Ryan Mountcastle. Like you mentioned, like I like his peripherals look amazing. Like he looks so good. Like if he was in Cincy last year, his expected homers was 40 homers. Like Mountcastle looks awesome. yeah, get him out of Baltimore, like soon, quickly, please. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I got nothing else to say on him other than I like him, but his home stadium, I mean, it's just killing him.
It is. It's absolutely brutal. I guess the one hope is, and I'm trying to pull it up right now. Maybe it's time for his contract to be up and he can finally get traded out of there. He just started arbitration, so no, he still has like 3 years.
He's not going.
He's not going anywhere.
They're gonna give him. They're gonna contest every arbitration. He ain't going anywhere for a while.
Yeah. So moving on then, since he has no hope of getting out of Baltimore and Camden Yards, moving on to number 13 is Andrew Vaughn, another person who fell victim to the White Sox no home run thing. 2022, he had 17 home runs. He 60-76, hit 271. You have him down for 18 home runs, 73-82, and a 264 average. In the first half last year, I kind of thought he was moved, like it was breakout time. He was hitting 301. He had 10 home runs. In the second half, he hit 234 with 7 home runs. So the power really didn't drop, but when the average dropped 70 points, not great. And I will say the White Sox as a team seemed to kind of phone in the entire second half, so they wouldn't have Tony in the dugout come this year. But what do you have on Andrew Vaughn? I feel like this is a guy that I could talk myself into being drafted, because at least he brings some upside. Like at least there's still that hope of something to happen here.
Maybe instead of a humidor, the White Sox are using one of those like cryogenic freezers. Well, did anyone see? This is more out to the general public. Did anyone see if, like, when a White Sox player hit the ball squarely, if the ball shattered? Did anyone notice that this year?
Flake off a little bit.
Yeah, just like the ball just shattered like a snowball. It was just like, whoa, what happened? That doesn't seem normal. I don't know, man. It's sun's up with Chicago. That's another thing that it's going to be interesting to see, because like in general, like you mentioned, like Wrigley too played really like a pitcher's park, which it doesn't usually. Like it seemed like the wind was blowing in Chicago like every home game for both the White Sox,
on both sides.
Yeah, for both sides. It doesn't really make sense. So it'll be interesting to see like what happens this year, like if both Chicago teams bounce back with power, or if it really is because of like, humidor, like, jokes aside, like if it's a humid climate and you put a humidor in there, you are going to reduce, offense. So that, I mean, it could be, I guess, it's possible something weird is going on with like the, with the humidor and the balls. And I don't know, man, it is bad though. And Andrew Vaughn doesn't look anywhere close. Like I remember when he got promoted originally, it was like, oh, he's going to be a 30 homer, 280 hitter. Well, the 280 seems possible. I don't know where the 30 homers are. I mean, he's got 32 homers in 261 career games. So we'll see if the White Sox get into one of those, like, 1,000 extra inning games and he gets like an extra 500 at bats this year. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, still waiting for that 60 raw power that we were told about to show up. Again, I think it can. I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen now or in 3 years when the White Sox trade him, or never. I honestly don't know. I can talk myself into a breakout here. So I probably like him a little bit more than some of the other guys that we're going to talk about rest of the way out. But I also don't feel very strongly about a projected line for him either.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next guy, that's Ty France. Last year, he had 20 home runs, 65, 83, at 274. You have him down for 18 home runs, 73, 79, and a 271 average. And for Ty France last year, there was pre-wrist injury and after wrist injury. Pre-wrist injury, he was hitting 316. He had 10 home runs. After the injury, he hit 232 with 10 home runs. So the average just bottomed out as soon as that wrist injury happened. Wrists are always a little tricky. You never know if they've actually recovered or not. It kind of looks like you're taking the middle ground, though. You're not necessarily putting him at the 300 hitter we saw. and you're also not putting him down at the 230 hitter we saw.
Yeah, and in general, like with first base, I've realized something that like there's like it used to be the average first baseman was like a 30 homer 270 hitter. Now they seem to be like 20 homer 270 hitters, which is like really not good. It's not great. I mean, I don't know, man. Dead ball really has done wonders. It's like in the 90s, it was like, wow, everyone's hitting 60 homers. Now it's like, I wonder if he'll hit 15. Yeah, I don't know. Like you mentioned, the power was fine after the wrist injury, right? So yeah, I mean, so I think the wrist injury was like, it's probably not that big of a I mean, wrist injuries are always a little bit scary, but I think he's probably fine. Like I'm not that concerned. I think the my biggest concern with him is just that Seattle's a terrible park for power. He hasn't ever shown to have real power. Like he's a line drive hitter, so I mean, if he goes and hits like 18 homers and 270, I mean, it's okay, I guess. I mean, if you got to twist my arm, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. It's not really that exciting. Sort of like, I mean, Andrew Vaughn and him are like, they're separated by whatchamacallit. They're separated by in ADP, that is, they're separated by about 30 spots, which is I guess only like 2 rounds, but still Vaughn is way above Ty France. I don't know. They feel like exactly the same to me. I mean, I guess that could be nitpicking on whether or not Ty France is really the same as Andrew Vaughn, but it feels like the same, even though in ADP he's a little bit later. And for the wrist injury too, his BABIP was way down in the second half, so maybe that accounted for something. I don't know. His hard hit was probably down too. I didn't look to see if it was. I'm sure it probably was, but yeah, I mean, yeah, he's an 18-ish 270 hitter. Hopefully, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, he's kind of in that area. Maybe he gives you that batting average. That may be the one area he can kind of be a plus guy for you. But to your point about ADP, like his line's not that different than Vinnie P. He's going 90 picks later, Gray.
Right.
I don't know. It's just how first base works. Like I keep saying these things, but it's really just how first base works. And like, and I think the main reason Vaughn's going before France is just, what I said, like there's still potential for Vaughn to show us something. Like Ty France at best is going to be like a 320 home run hitter. And that's like the upside. Moving on to your next tier, number 15, Jose Miranda. Last year in 125 games, he hit 15 home runs. He had a stolen base, 45, 66, 268. You have him down for 22 home runs, 1 stolen base, 79, 90, 283. I mean, Jose Miranda is another, possible upside play here at first base. And honestly, there's not that many of them.
No, there's not. That's probably why I'm like excited about Jose Miranda. Because like if it was a normal year, like I'd look at Jose Miranda and be like, Heimer Candelaria much? But because it's like such a weak year at first baseman, I'm like, ooh, Jose Miranda, tell me more.
Tell me about a 260 hitter that can hit more than 20 home runs.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's got like, I wrote a sleeper post about him, and I in the sleeper post I put a video from a walk-off home run he hit in July. Drafting a guy based on one swing. It's a little bit of a stretch. I'll say that. But, if you look at that video, he really he shows incredible power. Like, it's not really it doesn't look like a swing that is going to be like a 40 homer swing. Like, I'm not going to get crazy with myself here, but his swing like, and how far he drives the ball. It's a second deck walk-off home run. And it is like everyone in the stadium knew immediately how far the ball was going. Like, it was really like it was a shot. So if he's got that power, you would think he'd be able to get at least some homers. I mean, like, this is a little bit like galaxy braining myself into thinking Jose Miranda is great, but he's at least good. I mean, he may not be great. I may be completely insane for saying, like, he's got this incredible upside. He may not, but he does have a really solid floor that isn't dramatically different than, say, Jose Abreu, to keep this in the theme of Jose's. Jose Miranda's like, he's a good, solid contact. I mean, as a rookie or even in his career, he's got an 18% strikeout rate. Like, he's got really good, he makes good contact. He doesn't strike out a ton. So, and his average, like, he hits the ball hard. So, like, I could see like a 310-ish BABIP, even though he has no speed. But a 310-ish BABIP with a 275-ish average and 23 homers, 275 doesn't sound amazing. That could be essentially Jose Abreu. So maybe not the incredible upside of like that you'd want to see from a sleeper, but I do like Jose Miranda. I'm definitely going to be looking at him later in drafts.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, in 2021 across AA and AAA, he hit 30 home runs. He hit 345 basically at both levels. And last year in the second half, he hit 280. So like the average is possible there. Like you said, he doesn't really strike out at a high level. He walks a ton. He doesn't actually walk a ton, but he walks a little bit. He does make contact a lot. I will say maybe the one thing that is holding his power numbers back is he seemed to kind of hit a lot of like toppers last year, where the breaking ball broke more than he thought and just kind of clipped the top of it, hit some weak grounders. So if he can figure that part out, I do think there is some upside on the average and even then the home runs potentially, because I do think he has some untapped power that we can potentially see. I'm not projecting him for 30, but I think that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Right. Yeah. And with the 30, I mean, his floor on his average should be pretty solid. So, at worst, he's Andrew Vaughn. Not great, but that's at worst. At best, he could have power upside.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no reason he couldn't put up like what CJ Cron did last year, plus maybe some average. Like that's very much within the realm of possibility.
Yep.
Rowdy Tellez comes in at 16. Last year, he went 35 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 67, 89. He hit 219, 306, 461. 22 home runs at home, 13 away. Not the best split that you want to see. But you have him down for 36 home runs, 1 stolen base, 71, 91, and 251. And the note that I made here is who the hell is Rowdy Tellez? Like, he's had a 314, a 283, and a 219 average season. He's had 21, 11, and 35 home runs. His K rate has gone anywhere between 28% all the way down to sub 16%. Like, we were talking about like players that baffled me. CJ Cron, one of them, like, that baffled me earlier. Like, Rowdy Tellez is maybe the most baffling player to me on this entire list. Like, it is absurd. I don't understand who he is.
Well, he's a big boy.
He is.
We'll say that.
He's a big boy. That is for sure.
The most people, I think, are. I've seen Corey Seager. I think I've seen Rizzo. I've seen a lot of the same names for like the shift ending and how much better certain players could get. I don't think I've seen a lot about Rowdy Tellez, but I think he could really be a benefactor of the shift ending. I think there's a good chance, like, because he hits the ball really hard. So who he is a guy who hits the ball hard, and he's like and he runs like a bowling ball. if a bowling ball had legs. He's just like, I think he's a 30 homer 250 hitter. Like I really think, like I don't think he's necessarily like a guy who's going to, like, maybe, like, he's not going to find speed obviously, but he had like a top 2% max exit velocity and 36 on average, 36 highest for average. Like, I think like the ball just really flies off of his bat. So I wouldn't be surprised if like I wrote a sleeper post on him, so I'm obviously a fan. Like he hits really, like when he hits a ball, I mean, he hits it really hard. So you would think with the shift ending, like I feel like he's getting like forgotten about, like the guys who could potentially have like a huge uptick in value for like with the shift gone. Like I think he could be a surprise, like really good on average, and he's going to hit for power. I don't think the power is going anywhere. Like you said, there was some some split issues, but I mean, if you just look at his peripherals, like he hits the ball in the air a lot. He's got, his homer per fly ball isn't outrageous to be like, it's repeatable from last year, 18.7%. And his hard hit percentage is really good, like I mentioned. So with the ball in the air, hitting the ball hard, and the shift ending, I think there could be a recipe here for like Rowdy Tellez to be like, have his like little bit of, not necessarily like, I don't think he's going to hit like 300 and 45 homers, but he could potentially, like last year he hit 35 homers. If he hits 35 homers and 250, it's great. It's a great year. I mean, especially for a first baseman this year, like that's like a top 5 first baseman year. So I'm in. I like Rowdy Tellez.
Yeah, I don't hate him because the home away splits is basically because he's in Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee is among the top 5 parks the hitter can go to for home runs. So he stayed in Milwaukee. I really don't have a problem drafting him. It's just his line year to year is just the most baffling thing to me, and that's kind of what I was getting towards. I don't know that I see him as a guaranteed like 30 home run guy, because he's only ever hit 30 home runs once. He's really only ever been on pace for it once. I just and again, maybe it's just getting from Toronto to Milwaukee. Maybe it's strictly a ballpark thing, and he's the poor man's CJ Cron, or maybe the exact same thing as CJ Cron. But I don't know that it improves off of last season that much.
Listen to the First Base Rankings podcast where we compare everyone to CJ Cron.
CJ Cron, Eric Hosmer, all the Rhys Hoskins and Matt Olson. Everybody's compared to those guys. Moving on to the next guy, number 17, Anthony Rizzo. He's back with the Yankees. Last year, he had 32 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 77, 75, 224, 338, 480. You have him down for 29 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 74, 78, 226. So you pretty much have him in line with what he did last year and kind of what to expect, I think, at this point in his career.
Yeah, definitely. I think also I think his his splits are I think bad, but they're always bad. I feel like he's always like, he takes a dump in the second half. That's a technical term for what he does. You'll hear that often. Oh, he's taking a dump. Yeah, I mean he is basically at the end of the year, his second half. This is going on a couple of years now where he hasn't had a great second half. It wasn't just last year. Previous years he didn't have a great second half. But I think if you're looking at like his numbers, like at the end of the year, they always look relatively the same. I think also with like ADP, he's not. I mean, I don't mind him. Like if he's there at like 150 to 160 overall, that's fine. I don't mind Anthony Rizzo. I mean, you just got to know. I think you got to expect the him doing a number 2 in the second half. But if it's if the first half is as good as it always is, then I think he's going to be fine. I think he's probably a little bit underrated. Like if you look at just his numbers, let's see, who can we compare him to? CJ Cron. Yeah, I mean, CJ Cron minus 30 points an average. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's not that far off. I guess there's the one thing that kind of stands out for him is that there's not much time for him at DH in New York. So maybe that's part of the second half fall off that's come as he's gotten older is he can't just fall into the DH and just hit because they have Stanton. They obviously try and get Judge some days off there too. So that may be the biggest problem for him is just he wears out a little bit over the second half. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he's pretty much going to give you his numbers. I don't really see anything that stands out too much that we need to discuss more. Number 18 is Alec Bohm. Last year, he had 13 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 79, 72. He hit 280, 315, 398. You have him down for 18 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 81, 75, 286. I mean, he finally got his ground ball rate under 50%, so that's a positive. But still is not quite hitting the ball with the same authority we thought we would see from Alec Bohm.
Yeah, I also think if you think of Yelich or any other guy who only if he were to change his launch angle, it's like it's never that simple. Even though Alec Bohm, like you mentioned, I mean, he did hit a little bit less on the ground balls last year, and his fly balls were up a little bit. He's a line drive hitter more than anything. I think if you're looking at him, maybe I have him for 18 homers, like you mentioned. And I don't know, even in retrospect, that might be a little bit high. That might be a little bit optimistic, but if he can get to I don't know, 15 to 18 homers, he is essentially a 280 hitter. So it's basically Andrew Vaughn. If it's not CJ Cron,
another Andrew Vaughn. Yeah, I will say for Bohm, and obviously we talked about the launch angle, it almost doubled from 21 to 2022. So there is a little bit of hope here that he upped the launch angle, he maintained the average. So if he can just continue to do that, Philly's a pretty good stadium for him to be in. So, I mean, I don't think 18's unreasonable. I think he can get there. He's still only going to be 26. There's still some, potential for growth there. But, he is pretty much on that Yelich, just line drives and beat the ball into the ground type of path. So until that changes, I don't know. You can go really above, 18 to 20 home runs.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to number 19, Seth Brown. You actually had a sleeper post on him too. In 2022, he went 25 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 55, 73, 230. You have him down for 28 home runs, 9 stolen bases, 69, 81, and a 238 average. I mean, it seems like you're kind of in on Seth Brown a little bit here.
I am. Yeah, I am totally in on him. It's his second half barrels were 17.3%, which was 4th in the majors. It's again, like I was saying earlier, the second half, second half is either a harbinger for what's to come, or it's just the second half, and he's going to not be as good in the first half this year. But I mean, he really was it seemed like he was breaking out a little bit, and he's not a 0 in speed, and he's got good power. So if he's able to connect the dots and have a 27 to 30 homer year with 7 to 10 steals, and he only struck out 26% of the time and hit 230 overall. I mean, it's not inconceivable that if all these things were to come together, I'm not talking about a guy he's not necessarily his ADP right now is 205 overall. So it's not like you don't have to pay a lot to find out. So I like Seth Brown for his price, where he's going in drafts. And what he could potentially do. I think there's really a solid chance here for like a breakout that is like on par with Matt Olson. See, I was going to compare it. He's way better than CJ Cron and Andrew Vaughn if you're doing a ceiling. He's like a Matt Olson if you're doing a ceiling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess maybe the only concern is, how long does a breakout at 29, or how often does a breakout at 29 carry over into age 30 season? But as the numbers go, he was definitely trending in the right direction in the second half. Average came up, he took more walks, power increased. So everything looked moving in the right direction here in the second half. So I really don't mind taking the shot on Seth Brown. We're getting a little bit long here, Grace. I'm going to group these next two together because they basically had very solid first halves and then got traded to San Diego and shit the bed. That is Josh Bell and Brandon Drury. Josh Bell goes to the Nationals now, and Drury goes to the Angels, the West Coast Cubs. Let's just kind of talk about these two together to try and move us along here.
Josh Bell goes to the Guardians. Is that what you're saying?
Guardians. Sorry. Yeah, he was with Nationals, and then he went to the Guardians this year. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, I don't really like either of them either. So I'll keep it even shorter for you.
Awesome. We can move on.
Josh Bell and Brandon Drury, I guess they're going at ADP wise, they're going around 185 for Josh Bell and 195 for Brandon Drury. So essentially in the same area of ADP as they are in my rankings. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping in best case scenario, I already have drafted a corner man, and now I'm looking at like either utility or I'm not looking at these guys. So, maybe a utility with Josh Bell. I don't know. I don't trust Brandon Drury. Is like, he really feels like just like Anthony Rendon II going to the Angels. Like, goodbye. Like, I don't see anything coming of that. And Josh Bell he tends to have these, like, it's interesting too, because watching him swing, like, at least to my eye, like, it looks like he has like an uppercut swing, but he hits the ball very flat. And he hits a lot of ground balls. Like, Josh Bell is surprisingly never mentioned in the Christian Yelich conversation, but Josh Bell doesn't hit many fly balls either. So him in Cleveland not hitting fly balls, not great. I don't know. He's also maybe because like when he does hit lefty, maybe the shift ending helps him a little bit, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of either of these guys.
Yeah, I feel like Josh Bell is the guy you take if you've just completely forgot about the position. You're like, oh my God, somebody please give me an acceptable season. And then Drury, you're taking here because he has three position eligibility. That's why you're taking him here. You're not necessarily taking him to get the same numbers he gave you last year. He gets first, second, and third eligibility. So like that's why you're taking him at this point. Number 22 is Joey Meneses. Last year in 56 games, he hit 13 home runs, 1 stolen base, 33, 34. He hit 324, 367, 563. Crazy numbers in 56 games. In AAA last year, in 96 games, he had 20 home runs, a stolen base, 51, 64, and he hit 286. You have him down for 20 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 68, 74, 261 here. This is a guy that I'm probably taking a shot on before like any of the last guys we've talked about, other than maybe Seth Brown, just because I feel like Joey has some untapped upside that like we haven't seen since we talked about, like, I don't know, if Ryan Mountcastle got traded. Like,
yeah, Joey's got his Meneses is not like, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see, honestly. Hey, more power to you if you draft him and he does what he's supposed to do. But I was kind of surprised when I saw him being drafted even as high as he was. I feel like if you were to give you a name and a scenario of who I think he is, think Luke Voigt coming out of the 2020 season. Like, yeah, I mean, he had a good 60 games. Joey Menzies had a good 60 games. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he didn't even have as good a 60 games as Luke Voigt had in 2020. But I mean, he had a good 60 games. I don't know. I don't really, and he's such a quad A player. I feel like he's not really very good. I mean, he feels like a guy who, like, this time next year, people were going to be like, hey, remember Joey Menzies? Like, I just don't see him doing anything this year. Like, I don't know. I'm not in. Good luck to you, though, if you are.
That's completely fair. I mean, he is a 30-year-old. I just kind of railed on Seth Brown for being the kind of the same thing. But that's kind of the group I'm sticking him in with, is like the Seth Brown 30-year-old breakout group, because that's where he belongs. I will say, if he qualified, he didn't qualify because he only played 60 or 56 games. If he qualified, he would have been 79th in barrel rate, 39th in hard hit, and 30th in average exit velocity. In your article, or in this article, the first baseman article, you compared him to Luke Voigt. And my big difference between them is Luke Voigt was going as a top 10 first baseman. You can get Joey like around 200 ADP. So there's just a lot less risk than what we saw with Luke Voigt.
Okay.
That's the upside there. Luis Arraez comes in at 23. He's first base, second base eligibility. He's moving to the Marlins. Last year, he had 8 home runs, 4 stolen bases. He had 316, 375, 420. You have him down for 7 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 93, 53, 312. Look, it's Freddie Freeman, but 180 picks later.
Yes, that's exactly right. Even if you were to say to Luis Arraez, hey, you're kind of like Freddie Freeman, he'd be like, am I? I don't think so. Hola, I think you loco. I would be very surprised if he would agree with you, unless he really thought a lot of himself. Yeah, I mean, he's just an average bet, really. Like, if you're, if you are really hurting an average and you're like, I have to get a utility guy who can hit 315, then and if Jeff McNeil's off the board, I guess you can try Luis Arraez. But yeah, I'm not. In general, I'm not a guy who usually drafts guys who are only good in one category, and that category being average. It's not usually how I draft players. I would go for just about anything. Instead of Arraez, I would probably even take a flyer on like a Miguel Vargas before Arraez. But if you really need average, he's going to give you average.
Yeah, I actually kind of like Arraez a little bit more than it sounds like you do. He does give you average. He's also going to sit at the top of the Marlins lineup. So I just like, he's going to give you runs, going to give you average. That's pretty much it. But I think that's going to be a little bit more valuable than, what his ADP is. Plus, he's got dual eligibility at first, second. So that's nice to have as well. Although you're probably not playing him at first regardless. So maybe a little bit of a moot point in this discussion. Jake Cronenworth comes in at 24. Last year, he had 17 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 88, 88, 239. You have him down for 18 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 79, 78, 247. I mean, straight Cronenworth.
Yeah, honestly, with first baseman in general, like, if you want to find a first baseman who's going to hit 18 to 22 homers and 250 to 270 average, you're gonna have no problem finding that. If that's your kink, young man, you're gonna be really horny this year.
Yes, you got plenty of that coming your way. Moving on to number 25 is Triston Casas. Last year in 27 games, he hit 5 home runs, he had a stolen base, and he hit 197. In AAA last year, in 72 games, he had 11 home runs, and he hit 273. You have him down for 19 home runs, a stolen base, 57, 66, 243. I will say on Casas, he's always been considered kind of a top prospect. People were clamoring for him to come up and play first base last year for Boston. I gotta say, like, the prospect pedigree aside, the numbers have never really stood out to me that like he's a top prospect, that he should be considered in this realm of top prospects. So I mean, maybe I'm just less excited about him and maybe it's just Boston fans.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need to. I don't have it completely formulated in my head yet, even though I just cut you off in order to say it. But I do think that there's something to like a guy is considered a top prospect, and they're really just a serviceable major leaguer. Like it's like there's so many guys in the minor leagues who will never be serviceable major leaguers that you look at a guy and you're like, that guy can hit 25 homers and 270 in the major leagues. That's a top prospect. And then they get to the major leagues and they only hit like 20 homers and 260. And it's like, wait, he was supposed to be a top prospect. It's like, yeah, he's basically doing what we expected. Like, what? You guys need to lay off of the top prospect talk a little bit. Because you're saying top prospect about way too many guys. I still have my top prospect, Bobby Dahlbeck, who hasn't even become a top prospect yet. I mean, I agree with you. Like, if you look at his numbers, you're like, how is he a top prospect? But then you ask somebody in the prospect game and they'll be like, yeah, he's got great power. He's going to hit 30 homers and 250. And you're like, so?
Like, you should hear the pop off his bat. And I'm like, when he hits the ball?
Yeah.
When does that happen?
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, man, you should see how hard the ball goes off his bat. It's like, yeah. And what does that mean for me, man?
Straight into somebody's glove. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, though. A certain respect, like, there's 100, there's 100 top prospects in a top 100. Gray's breaking news. So there's 100 top prospects, right? Only like 15 of them are going to be any good. So it's like 85 guys are like considered top prospects, and they get to the major leagues, and it's like he's Nicky Lopez. Like, wait, what? How is he a top prospect? Like, yeah, he's got a good glove and he's got speed. That's a top prospect, bro. Like, is it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Casas is, I mean, I'm just hoping he plays. If he plays, I feel like he could hit 20 homers and 245, which, I mean, in a deep league, you could do worse, I guess. It's not, as long as he plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think by all accounts, he should have an opportunity to play. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't let him roll it out there and see, like, is he going to be the guy? Can he adjust? Can he do everything? So I agree that he's going to have some value. I just wanted to bring it up that I don't know where the prospect pedigree really comes from, other than like when he was drafted, which was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, you got to consider the prospect pedigree is like there's people making their bread and butter on saying prospects are going to be good, and they have to say at least 100 of them, and 100 of them aren't going to be good. So it's like if 85% of them are wrong. Yeah, I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to be good. Yeah, no shit, bro. But is Triston Casas going to be good? That's what I really want to know.
You don't got to tell me the top 5 guys are good. You got to tell me if guy number 78 is going to be like
right, exactly,
average major leaguer or like a below.
Going to be good. How good will number 78 be? Anyway, let's move on.
All right, moving on to number 26, and that is Josh Naylor. Last year, he hit 20 home runs. He had six stolen bases, went 47-79, hit 256. You have him down for 18 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 56, 64, and a 259 average. Not even sure he gets full playing time this year since the Guardians did add Josh Bell, but I would imagine he finds a way into the lineup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, completely. And I think, again, like if your kink is like 17 to 22 homers and a 260 average ish, I mean,
Just break out the handcuffs now.
I do. I do. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Josh Naylor, especially if Josh Naylor also inherits some of Bo Naylor's stats, then he's going to really be good. if the scorekeeper gives if the scorekeeper,
then he could be a 240, 23 home run guy.
The scorekeeper. What am I playing? Basketball? What am I doing? Am I playing Scrabble? The scorekeeper. If the official scorer gives Josh Naylor Bo Naylor's stats, then we're really going to be great. Yeah, I don't know. I think Josh Naylor's had he's had a little bit of like a little helium in his numbers that's a little surprising to me. But I can't attest for what other people are thinking. So I don't know. I mean, he's fine. Again, like he doesn't have like I don't know, like when he gets into a ball, like if you've ever seen him homer, you're like, wow, he's got great power. But then you look at his numbers and it's like, nah, I mean, he's okay. It's fine. I mean, it's kind of like all first basemen this year. It's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy who was supposed to be like power first. His max home runs in the season was last year in the majors with 20. That seems really odd that you would max out your home runs in the majors. I just don't know that like his carrying tool, again, power is showing up. Maybe his hit tool is a little bit better than I thought, though. So that's a possibility. I don't hate Josh Naylor. It's just I'm not betting on him to break out in any significant way either. Wil Myers comes in at 27. He's going to Cincinnati. Last year in 77 games, he had 7 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 29, 41, 261. You have him down for 18-5, 49, 53, 246, and 403 at bats. He had like a 3-week stretch where he was useful for fantasy purposes last year. Can he get some of that Brandon Drury rub off in Cincy?
I think he could actually. I think I think Cincy is like the new Coors Field. Like
it's Coors, basically.
Yeah, it's just Coors. I mean, it's Coors, man. It's like if
Midwest Coors.
It's Midwest Coors, man. It's Midwest Coors, bro.
The banquet.
It sounds like the world's worst bartender. It's like, yeah, it's Midwest Coors. Like, oh wow. That sounds great. Give me a bottle of that.
I'll take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture. Give me a picture. Give me a nice ice cold picture of Midwest Coors. Wil Myers, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he's like traded in July. I could totally see him getting moved if he has a good first half. But in most leagues, if you get a good first half, you can probably piece together a second half with another hitter. Like Wil Myers totally feels like a kind of guy who would like get traded and become a platoon player. not to totally go completely down the Brandon Drury road, but I mean that he does feel like
it feels very Drury like.
It feels very Drury like. Yeah. Speaking of Midwest Coors, if you drink enough pitchers, you start saying Drury.
Drury.
Drury. Yeah, but I don't mind him though. Super late.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. He's always had a little bit of power speed combo, and I think he might be one of those guys. Like he's going to the Reds, they have nothing to play for, so they could play him pretty much until they get trade value. Like he has pretty much maintained his speed. Like that's probably seems crazy to everybody. He was faster last year than he was in 2016. Like that's really weird to me, but it's like by the stats, that's true. And so like if the Reds are just going to let him do whatever he wants and run whenever he wants, I could see some value coming here. And people hate Wil Myers. So like you can get him so late. 447 is his average draft position right now, Gray. So I really do not mind a late flyer on Wil Myers here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Wil Myers is probably, I don't know for a fact, but yeah, he's at 251. So just, just to, not that I see him being like a high draft pick, but since he got signed by the Reds, he's had a little bit of more helium. He's going at 250 overall. I would draft him at 250 overall, though. I mean, if he's there, I never liked Wil Myers, or actually, I haven't liked Wil Myers in like 8 years. Speaking of guys with top prospect pedigree, everyone loved Wil Myers. Like, oh, Wil Myers he's gonna be like a top 10 player. Oh, what happened there, guys? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, anyway, he's going at like 250. I would draft him at like 250. I have no problem with Wil Myers. And that's coming off of like 7 years when I didn't want anything to do with him.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit of a Wil Myers sucker, so I can't say that I haven't liked him before. But yeah, I think first base outfield eligibility going where he is in drafts, I think you do worse. Moving on to 28, that's Brendan Donovan. Last year he had 5 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 64, 45, 281 in 126 games. Young down for 8 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 69, 51, and 286. Wow, that's boring.
Yeah, it's not great, I guess. I like, I think honestly, I think Brandon, he's going much later, by the way. Donovan's going later in drafts, at least, than I have him ranked. I have him like this is, we should probably say this is like the end of like a 12-team mixed league. Like this is like, these guys may not even get drafted in all your 12-team leagues, but if you're going to draft them, these are like utility guys in a 12-team league, and like deep corner 15-team league guys, maybe utility. Anyway, Donovan, I mean, for right now, unless the Cardinals sign anyone, Donovan's sitting in the middle of the lineup. Like he's hitting probably in the middle of that Cardinals lineup, which isn't awful. And he's like, I don't know. I mean, definitely not great. I mean, not amazing, but he's got a good hit tool. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see him hit like, I mean, he could surprise. I have him for 286, which is maybe a little bit high, but yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of power, very little. When I say little, it's really emphasizing on the little. He's got a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, and he hits for a good average. In the middle of a Cardinals lineup, you could probably do worse if he's getting anywhere close to 470 at bats. He's the kind of guy who, in deeper leagues, you set him and forget him if he's in the Cardinals lineup, and you just let him go out there at like, corner, or he's got a lot of eligibility too. I want to say he's got like corner and MI. So he can probably play, and outfield as well. So he could probably play all over. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying to defend my rank. I think he's probably going to be ranked like on the player radar. If he gets 470 at bats, he's not going to be much worse than a top 30 first baseman.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. By default falling in there. I think the biggest reason to draft him is the positional eligibility. So if you want that, that's fine. I'm also a little bit worried because like Cardinals players that come out of nowhere and put up a solid season don't have a great track record of like repeating said good season.
Why are you talking shit about Edmundo Sosa?
So that's always hanging in the back of my mind. Like if he goes from 280 to like 240.
How dare you talk about Aldamis Diaz?
That's my concern. All right, 29 is a guy that I like, that I'm probably going to draft everywhere because I've always liked him, and that's Alex Kirilloff. In 45 games last year, he hit 3 home runs. He hit 250, 290, 361. In AAA last year, he hit 10 home runs with 359, 465, 641 slash line. You have him down this year for 19 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 57, 62, and 261. This is a guy that I am hanging on to, just the prospect pedigree, and I'm hoping it comes over because he's never been healthy. Like he can't stay healthy to get me a full season so he can do it. But I think it's coming. It's coming, Ray.
Oh man, when you said prospect pedigree, I was just like, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to laugh. Yeah, he's another guy that's like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a star in the major leagues. I mean, maybe he'll stay healthy and hit well, or hit as well as people thought he was going to. Because yeah, I mean, he does supposedly have a good hit tool and power, but no speed. He may not be completely different than Andrew Vaughn.
The other top prospect that we keep talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, I guess.
Fair enough. So yeah, we'll wait and see on Eric's Kirilloff. Again, I'm willing to go in on him. It's been more injuries than him not performing to this point. So hoping he gets his chance, stays healthy. Up next is number 30, and that's Juan Yepez. Last year, he had 12 home runs, hit 253, 296, 447. In AAA last year, in 50 games, he had 16 home runs and 277. You have him down for 16 home runs, 49, 56, and a 262 average. I don't know. It kind of feels like this is the Cardinals guy that we've all decided is not for real among the group of them. Like Nootbaar, like Lars Nootbaar, people are love. Like Brendan Donovan, I mean, people aren't really in love with him, but like think he's going to do what he's going to do. Like Juan Yepez is the one everybody's like, nah.
Totally. Yeah, no, completely. Like everyone's like Lars Nootbaar. Oh yeah, he's gonna be good. Like what? Wait, what? Yeah, he's the one that's gonna be good. Juan Yepez, not gonna be good. What? Like yeah, man, you're right. I don't know why that is either. Because you look at Juan Yepez and you're like, well, in 76 games, I mean, he had more homers than say Vinnie Pasquantino. he hit more homers than him in essentially the same number of games. He has a really good contact rate. Like he doesn't strike out a ton. He was like, he's a late bloomer, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why everyone's decided Yepez is going to be the one that's going to be bad. I don't know. I could totally. I mean, for his price, I'm not saying like I'm drafting him in like the top 200, but for his price, I have no problem with Juan Yepez at like 270. Right now his ADP is 307. When you're this late, the difference between 270 and 307 really isn't that big of a difference. Unlike the difference I was saying earlier with like Lowe and Olson. Yeah, I think Yepez at 275, like grab him and see what happens. As long as he's still in the lineup with the Cardinals, and right now he's penciled in as a starter. If he gets 450 plus at bats, I got no problem taking him at like, a late as a corner man or a utility, like super late in a deep league.
Yeah, and he'll start the season with first base, outfield. He could potentially get third base because they use him there whenever they want to get Arenado a day off or stick Arenado on the DH. So he's going to have dual eligibility as well. I really don't mind taking Yepez here. I feel like he had just as good a quality at bats. Maybe I think he had the best quality at bats among like those three, the three Cardinals players we're referencing here. So if anything, I think there's a little bit of room for him to move up in the lineup above, a Brendan Donovan, above a Lars Nootbaar. And if Tyler O'Neill doesn't get his shit together, he can move up above Tyler O'Neill even.
Yeah, he could be like, he could slot in like he's a cleanup hitter type at bat. So he could slot in at like, right below Arenado or something. Well, they hit from the same side of play, but like, maybe 6 in the order, someone hitting between Arenado and him. But yeah, I mean, I like Yepez a lot. I'm surprised that no one's really like, it doesn't seem like it, at least people are interested in him in drafts.
Yeah, I agree. There's been no fight for me to get him very late. So great. We're here. We've gone really late, really long here on the first baseman. No surprise there. We're at 31. Let's talk about this. I'm just going to name the next tier. Let's talk about maybe one of these guys, and then we'll pick a late guy. In this next tier is Lourdes Gurriel Jr. at 31, Trey Mancini at 32, Luke Voigt at 33, Yandy Diaz at 34, Jared Walsh at 35, Wilmer Flores at 36, and Joey Votto at 37. I mean, among this group, who are you most likely to maybe take the shot on here?
I would say probably Trey Mancini, because like if the Cubs sign him, they're gonna play him. I don't, I hate that the Cubs signed him because it hurt Matt Mervis. I think it hurt him at least. I don't know.
Yeah.
It at least delayed him a little bit. But I don't love that the Cubs signed Mancini, but I could see Mancini having a little bit of value super late for like a corner or a utility guy.
Yep. Again, if you love a 20 to 25 home run, 240, 250 guy, whoo, they are in high availability here. But to that point, you also like if you're gonna take a guy in like the top 150 and he's gonna give you 240, 20 home runs, maybe you just wait it out. Maybe you just wait it out and grab a couple of these late guys and see which one of them pans out to be that. I think
if you're looking at like, I don't know, say Anthony Rizzo, who I like, not to disparage Anthony Rizzo, but if you're looking at Anthony Rizzo and you're looking at Trey Mancini's numbers, probably not that different, to be honest. If Mancini gets 520 at bats and Rizzo gets, his usual 480 at bats, they might not really be that different, even though, that probably sounds like madness to some people because of the short porch and everyone thinks Rizzo is just like this great bet for power in Yankee Stadium. But, he's been in Yankee Stadium and he's shown what he's capable of. And it's fine. It's not bad, but is Rizzo and Mancini that different? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say Rizzo's power is a little bit more guaranteed, but I would say Mancini has the upside of a little bit more average than what we're going to see from Rizzo, more than likely. I would say my guy from this group is Jared Walsh. He's going to be 29 in 2021. He had a 29 home run season. Now, this may be like the dead ball just killed Jared Walsh, and he just never hit the ball with that much authority.
Actually, it's interesting. I had lunch with a doctor. It sounds like the beginning of a joke. I really did have lunch with a doctor who is familiar with the TOS surgery, thoracic outlet surgery, and he says it probably is like one of the worst surgeries a baseball player can have. Like it's really not good. Like he wasn't that type of surgeon, so take it for what it's worth. But he was saying like he knew baseball too. He wasn't surprised that Strasburg hasn't been great and that other people coming back from that surgery have really struggled because like the muscles that it takes out, it's really important muscle. So, take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But Jared Walsh did have that surgery. So I don't know.
All right. That's good to know. Actually, I didn't know where the thoracic landed on the recovery kind of, bounce back kind of timeline. So that is good to know. And his second half was just absolutely abysmal. I mean, really his whole season, but damn, that second half was real bad. You want to bring up one last name here from the rest of the like 30 first basemen?
Yeah, well, I already said, sure. I said Mervis, I said already. So, I really liked him before the Mancini trade and Hosmer too. Yeah, that also. Hosmer, I felt less worried about because Hosmer's so crappy, but Mancini's not necessarily that crappy. And the fact that they went out and got two guys. Anyway, I still like Mervis, but I lowered Mervis in my my rankings after they signed those two guys. One guy who I think could be a surprise, and he's also extremely late. So you're looking at a guy whose ADP is, let me see, I don't even know. He's so late, I can't even find him. But so Spencer Steer, absolutely incredibly late. I don't know where it is on ADP, but it's late. He's in Cincy, which we've already established is the Midwestern Coors. Yum, yum. Give me some. Hello, ice cold Midwestern course. Spencer Steer with moist suck ass getting kicked to the curb. I think he's the everyday guy, Steer. I don't know if that's necessarily like, that doesn't mean like top 10 value. I mean, let's be realistic here. But Midwestern Coors is good. Steer's got good power. It'll be power enough for Cincy where he'll hit the usual first baseman numbers of like 17 to 22 homers. You don't have to worry about that. But he also has a good hit tool. Supposedly last year he hit 211, so that wasn't good. But he doesn't strike out a lot. So he has a really good eye. So he walks a lot. He had he was approaching 400 on base percentage in the minors. Steer could surprise with like a 250 average and 20 homers. And you're talking Andrew Vaughn. What's up?
Oh man.
Was there anyone you had your eye on, B-Don?
My guy that's going late here in this group is Spencer Torkelson. And it's really just based on that fun word that we've spit out a few times, prospect pedigree. I mean, he was literally like a top 5 prospect coming into last year, top 10 at least. Obviously, his first stretch in the majors didn't go great. Hit 203, not a ton of power. Strikeouts weren't that bad. He was still walking, but like everybody that you talk to that has seen this kid and works in the prospect world, like says Spencer Torkelson is just a great hitter. So I am willing to take him. He's being drafted around 340, maybe even later than that. So at his current cost and what he could potentially give you if it just kind of clicks for him, I think that's a shot that I'm willing to take.
Yeah, well, all right. You know who else they say is a great prospect is Jonathan Arnada. I don't know what happened to him. You know who else they really like? Vidal Brujan, huh? People are really talking that guy up. Yeah, so Torkelson for me is yes because of his price, and I agree that I'm willing to give him one more chance. So very late, the two Spencers, Steer and Torkelson.
Yeah, yep. I think that's fair. That's where we'll look towards the end, and we'll get into Brujan when we get over to his position. But I think we've covered plenty of here in this almost 2-hour podcast, Gray. As always, if you have specific questions, come to Twitter. You can find me. I'm at RazBeaton, or Gray's, of course, the manager of the @RazBall account. Subscribe, rate, review, listen, all that on youtube.com/RazBallFantasy or in whatever you get your podcasts on. And until we get back for second base next week, I will talk to you later, Gray.
All right, Lates.